Celestia watched Earth grow larger through the viewport of her escape pod, its blue-green surface both primitive and oddly captivating. The Sovereign Council had been quite creative with her punishment, banishment to this backwater world instead of execution for her failure to enthrall the Arcturus ambassador. She smiled, running slender fingers through her iridescent hair that shifted colors with her moods, currently a deep, vengeful crimson. Banishment? They've merely given me a new playground, she whispered to herself. The Luminescents were known throughout the galaxy as the ultimate manipulators. Their psychic allure could bend the will of even the most disciplined minds, and Celestia was considered the most potent of her kind in generations. She had toppled governments with a glance, brought warlords to their knees with a smile, and extracted the deepest secrets from the most guarded minds with a touch. Her pod crashed in a remote forest outside a mid-size human city. The impact was jarring, but her physiology was resilient. As night fell, she emerged from the wreckage, her skin glowing softly in the moonlight. The atmospheric compatibility scan showed Earth's air was breathable but unpleasantly dense. She'd adjust. With a thought, she altered her appearance to match Earth norms, dulling the luminescence of her skin, changing her hair to a simple black, and adjusting her eyes to hide their kaleidoscopic irises. The clothes she materialized were based on data from Earth's crude information networks, a simple black dress that hugged her figure. Humans were so easily influenced by visual stimulus. Phase 1, establish a base of operations, she muttered, setting off toward the lights of the city. Within 3 days, Celestia had acquired luxury accommodations, financial resources, and a small circle of influential humans who believed her cover story as an eccentric foreign heiress. All it took was subtle psychic nudges, carefully applied charm, and the occasional direct mental commandment. Humans were even easier to manipulate than the report suggested. All except one. She first noticed Marcus Hayes at a charity gala she had been invited to by the mayor, who was firmly under her influence. Marcus stood alone by the bar, observing the crowd with intelligent hazel eyes. Something about his presence disrupted the psychic web she had cast over the room. While others gravitated toward her unconsciously, he maintained his distance, occasionally glancing her way with what appeared to be amusement. Intrigued, Celestia approached him directly, employing the full force of her charm. "You don't seem to be enjoying the party," she said, her voice carrying harmonics designed to stimulate pleasure centers in the human brain. Marcus smiled politely. "I'm enjoying watching it unfold. Interesting dynamics in a room like this." He extended his hand. "Marcus Hayes. And you're the mysterious Ms. Celeste who has captivated half the city in less than a week." She took his hand, simultaneously launching a direct psychic probe, and found nothing. No response. No susceptibility. It was like touching a wall. "Something wrong?" Marcus asked, noting her momentary confusion. "Not at all," Celestia recovered smoothly. "I'm just surprised someone here isn't falling over themselves to impress me." He laughed, a genuine sound that was strangely appealing. "Should I be? You're certainly beautiful, but I've found beauty is often the least interesting thing about a person." The conversation continued, and for the first time in centuries, Celestia found herself actually engaging rather than manipulating. Marcus was a researcher in theoretical physics, brilliant but unpretentious. When he spoke about his work, studying anomalies in quantum fields, she recognized elements similar to the technology her own people used for interstellar travel. "Would you have dinner with me tomorrow?" she asked impulsively when they parted, and was surprised to realize she actually cared about his answer. "I'd like that," he responded with a smile that reached his eyes. As she returned to her penthouse later that night, Celestia paced restlessly, her hair cycling through confused colors, blue, purple, amber. Why was this human immune to her abilities? Was he perhaps not human at all? A rival agent sent to monitor her exile? Or something even more intriguing? For the first time in her long existence, Celestia found herself genuinely curious about another being. This unexpected development wasn't part of her plans for Earth domination, but perhaps it would prove useful. Or perhaps, though she wouldn't admit it even to herself, it would prove to be something she'd never experienced before, real. Celestia spent hours preparing for her dinner with Marcus, a novel experience for a being who could typically bend others to her will with minimal effort. Her hair shimmered between anticipatory gold and irritated scarlet as she cycled through different appearances, finally settling on a midnight blue dress that complemented her temporarily human-looking features. The restaurant was an intimate place overlooking the city lights. Marcus was already waiting when she arrived, standing as she approached. The simple courtesy shouldn't have affected her, but something about his genuine smile made her pulse quicken in a way she couldn't attribute to her species' natural biochemistry. "You look beautiful," he said. Celestia amplified her psychic aura, weaving subtle compulsions into her response. "Thank you. I wore this especially for you." The pheromones she released would have had most beings in the galaxy falling at her feet. Marcus merely nodded appreciatively. "Great choice. I picked this place because they have an observatory deck. Thought you might enjoy the stars." His complete immunity was both infuriating and fascinating. Throughout dinner, Celestia deployed increasingly potent techniques from her arsenal of manipulation. She synchronized her breathing with his, an advanced luminesce technique that typically created subconscious bonding. She told carefully crafted stories designed to lower psychological defenses. She even resorted to direct neural stimulation when their hands briefly touched over the wine list. Nothing. Worse, she found herself genuinely enjoying his company. Marcus spoke about his research with passion, explaining theories about multidimensional space that were surprisingly advanced for human science. When he asked about her background, she delivered her cover story flawlessly, but felt an uncomfortable twinge. Was this what humans called guilt? After dinner, they walked to the observatory deck. The night was clear, stars scattered across the dark canvas above them. "Sometimes I look up there and wonder what we don't know yet," Marcus said, his voice soft with wonder. "All those worlds, all those possibilities." Celestia followed his gaze upward. She could have named each star system visible from Earth, could have told him which ones harbored life, which ones were controlled by the galactic hegemony she had served for centuries. Instead, she found herself saying, "Does it make you feel small?" He turned to her, surprise evident in his expression. "No, not small. Connected. Part of something vast." His eyes studied her with unexpected insight. "Does it make you feel small, Celeste?" The question disturbed her more than it should have. On impulse, she leaned forward and kissed him, simultaneously launching her most powerful psychic assault, a technique she had once used to enthrall an entire planetary council. Marcus returned the kiss with gentle warmth, but when they separated, his eyes held the same clear awareness as before. No glazed adoration, no mindless desire, not even heightened attraction. Just Marcus, present and unaffected. "I should take you home," he said with a soft smile. In her penthouse later that night, Celestia hurled a crystalline sculpture across the room in frustration, her hair blazing crimson. The sculpture, a gift from the mayor she had mentally enslaved on her second day, shattered against the wall. "Impossible," she hissed, pacing the room. No human mind should be capable of this resistance. She activated her communication relay, a device disguised as a simple bracelet, and scanned Marcus's apartment from afar. No technology signatures beyond standard Earth devices. No energy emissions that would suggest non-human origins. Just a normal apartment with books scattered everywhere, scientific journals, a telescope pointed out the window. The next morning, she tracked him to his laboratory at the university. Cloaking herself from ordinary perception, a relatively minor ability among her people, she observed him working, checking instruments, making notes, occasionally gazing thoughtfully out the window. When she was certain the lab was otherwise empty, she materialized fully, startling him. "Celeste. How did you get in here?" he asked, recovering quickly. "Your security is laughable," she said, deciding to test a new approach, partial honesty. "I wanted to see you at work." Rather than being disturbed, he seemed amused. "Well, since you're here, want to see what I'm working on?" He showed her his current project, measuring quantum fluctuations around objects of significant mass. The equipment was primitive by galactic standards, but his methodology was innovative. Celestia found herself suggesting improvements to his approach, then catching herself. Why was she helping him? "You're not like anyone I've ever met," she admitted before she could stop herself. "I could say the same about you," Marcus replied, something knowing in his eyes that made her wonder exactly how immune he really was. As days turned into weeks, Celestia continued her attempts to bend Marcus to her will, each more elaborate than the last. She arranged chance encounters that played on human psychological triggers. She created scenarios designed to activate protective instincts. She even attempted to make him jealous by appearing with other men she had easily enthralled. Nothing worked. Worse, with each failed attempt, she found herself more drawn to him, to his quiet intelligence, his genuine kindness, his unassuming sense of humor. For the first time in her existence, she was experiencing what it meant to connect with someone who saw her, really saw her, and wasn't simply responding to her manipulations. One evening as they walked along the river that cut through the city, Marcus unexpectedly took her hand. The simple contact sent a jolt through her that had nothing to do with her psychic abilities. "What are you really doing here, Celeste?" he asked quietly, his voice gentle but direct. Her hair flickered briefly to shocked white before she controlled it, but something in his expression told her he might have noticed. The question hung between them, and for the first time in centuries, Celestia considered the radical, terrifying possibility of complete honesty. Celestia stood frozen by Marcus's question, her carefully constructed facade threatening to crumble. The riverfront was deserted, moonlight reflecting off the water's surface. In the distance, the city lights glittered like the stars she had known all her life, beautiful but cold, distant observers to the turmoil within her. "What do you mean?" she asked, stalling. Marcus's eyes were kind but unwavering. "Your hair changed color just now. It's done that before, quick flashes when you're emotional. And sometimes when you think I'm not looking, your eyes shift like kaleidoscopes." Her pulse quickened. "You're imagining things." "Am I?" He reached up slowly, giving her time to retreat, and touched a strand of her hair. "It's happening now." Turning purple. Fear? Uncertainty? Celestia stepped back, instinctively reverting to her defensive mechanisms. "I don't know what you're talking about. Perhaps we should end this evening." "You don't have to hide from me," Marcus said quietly. "I've known since the gala that you're different. I just don't know why you're here, or what you want from me." The vulnerability in his voice struck something deep within her. For centuries, she had viewed vulnerability as weakness, a flaw to exploit. Yet here was Marcus, openly acknowledging his uncertainty without shame. "If I told you the truth, you wouldn't believe me," she finally said. "Try me." And so, sitting on a bench overlooking the water, Celestia told him everything, or almost everything. She revealed her alien nature, her exile, the powers of her kind. She kept certain details vague, her role in galactic conflicts, the number of minds she had broken for information, the civilizations that had fallen to her manipulations. As she spoke, she gradually released her human disguise. Her skin took on its natural luminescence, her hair flowed freely through its spectrum of colors, and her eyes revealed their true kaleidoscopic nature. Marcus watched, fascinated rather than frightened. When she finished, silence stretched between them. "That explains a lot," he finally said, with remarkable composure. "But not everything. Why can't you manipulate me?" It was the question that had tormented her. I don't know, she admitted. It's never happened before. He seemed to consider this, looking out over the water. Maybe it's not that I'm special. Maybe it's that manipulation only works when there's a power differential, when one person sees the other as a tool rather than a being with their own agency. The insight struck her like a physical blow. What are you suggesting? That you're changing, Celestia. The very fact that you can't control me might be because, on some level, you don't want to anymore. She stood abruptly, her hair flaring angry red. That's absurd. My abilities aren't governed by sentiment. Aren't they? You said your people can sense emotions, feed on them, manipulate them. Wouldn't that require you to be creatures of emotion yourselves? Celestia turned away, unable to face the truth in his words. Her people had always taught that their psychic abilities made them superior, entitled to control lesser species. Never had they considered that these abilities might connect them more deeply to the very beings they manipulated. Come to my lab tomorrow, Marcus said gently. I want to show you something. The next day, feeling strangely vulnerable without her human disguise, though she maintained it for others, Celestia met Marcus at his laboratory. He led her to a private research room where complex equipment hummed quietly. I've been studying anomalous energy patterns, he explained, activating a screen that displayed waveform patterns. At first, I thought I was observing quantum fluctuations, but then I noticed they corresponded to emotional states in test subjects. The patterns looked familiar. Too familiar. You've been studying me, she realized. He nodded. Not just you. All humans emit these patterns to some degree, but yours are exponentially more powerful. Except. He pulled up another set of readings. When you're with me, your patterns change. They harmonize with mine. What does that mean? She asked, though she was beginning to suspect. I think that's why I'm immune to you. We're already synchronized, somehow. He looked at her with those honest eyes that had first captured her attention. In old stories, humans would call it a soul connection. My people don't believe in souls, she said automatically. What do you believe in, Celestia? The question lingered between them as days turned into weeks. Marcus continued his research, with Celestia now a willing participant. She found herself opening up about her past, her centuries of existence, the wonders and horrors she had witnessed across the galaxy. He listened without judgment, offering insights that made her reconsider beliefs she had held for lifetimes. One rainy afternoon in his apartment, surrounded by books and the gentle sound of droplets against windows, Celestia experienced something entirely new. Marcus had fallen asleep on the couch while they were discussing theoretical physics, his breathing deep and even, completely vulnerable beside her. In the past, she would have used such a moment to her advantage, slipping into his unguarded mind. Instead, she found herself watching the rise and fall of his chest, studying the lines of his face, feeling a complex emotion she had no name for. When he stirred and opened his eyes, catching her watching him, he smiled sleepily. What are you thinking about? I don't know how to be this, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Whatever is happening between us. I've never connected with anyone without controlling them. Marcus sat up, fully awake now. That's the point, isn't it? Real connection can't exist alongside control. He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to retreat, and kissed her. Unlike their first kiss, which she had engineered as an attack on his mind, this one was gentle, questioning. Instead of launching a psychic assault, Celestia found herself surrendering to the simple human act, her defenses falling away. When they separated, her hair was shimmering with colors she had never seen it produce before, soft pinks and golds that reflected emotions she had never allowed herself to feel. I think, she said, her voice unsteady, I'm afraid. Of what? Of losing myself. Of becoming weak. She looked down at her hands, which had controlled the fate of worlds. If I'm not what I was made to be, what am I? Marcus took her hands in his. Whatever you choose to be. That's the beauty of it. As Celestia left his apartment that night, walking through the rain without bothering to shield herself, she realized a fundamental truth: for all her power to enter the minds of others, she had never truly examined her own. The emotions growing within her, affection, compassion, perhaps even love, were transforming her in ways more profound than any physical metamorphosis. For the first time in her existence, she was becoming real. Celestia sensed them before they arrived. A familiar psychic pressure at the edge of her consciousness, like distant thunder before a storm. She was in Marcus's lab, helping him refine his quantum resonance equipment, when the first probe brushed against her mind. Her hair flashed stark white, and she dropped the delicate instrument she was holding. Celestia? What's wrong? Marcus was at her side instantly, concern etched on his face. They found me, she whispered, her voice hollow. The Sovereign Council. They're here. His expression hardened with determination. What do we do? The question struck her. Not so long ago, she would have abandoned this planet without hesitation, leaving its inhabitants to whatever fate befell them. Now, the thought of leaving Marcus was physically painful. I need to go, she said, already calculating escape routes, potential hiding places among the stars. They won't stop until they have me. Why now? Marcus asked, his analytical mind working through the problem. You've been here for months. What changed? Celestia looked at the equipment surrounding them, the machines that had been measuring and recording her energy patterns. This, she realized. Your research. The energy signatures. They must have detected them. She began frantically disconnecting cables, wiping data banks. We need to destroy all of it. Together they worked to dismantle the lab, erasing every trace of their discoveries. As they finished, Celestia froze, her senses detecting a new presence. Too late, she breathed. The air in the center of the lab shimmered and distorted. A tall, elegant figure materialized, alabaster skin luminescent even in the bright laboratory lights, hair flowing in patterns of deep blue and purple, eyes like twin galaxies spinning in the void. He wore robes of a material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Emissary Celestia, he said, his voice carrying harmonics that would have entranced any human listener. The Council extends greetings. Marcus stepped forward protectively, but Celestia placed a restraining hand on his arm. Archon the Los, she acknowledged, maintaining a neutral expression despite her hair betraying her anxiety with flickers of pale yellow. I didn't expect such an honor. The Council usually sends hunters for exiles, not one of their own. Thalos's eyes shifted momentarily to Marcus, then back to her. Your case has proven exceptional. The terms of your exile specified no contact with the hegemony for one full cycle. Yet here you are, broadcasting energy signatures across 3 sectors. An unintentional side effect of local research, she explained carefully. Nothing that violates the terms. Perhaps. The Los glided forward, examining the remains of the equipment. But the Council is concerned about the nature of this research. And your companion. His gaze fixed on Marcus, probing. Celestia felt the psychic assault directed at Marcus and instinctively strengthened her own field to shield him. The Los raised an eyebrow, his hair patterns shifting to surprised indigo. Fascinating, he murmured. You protect him. And yet. He intensified his probe, and Celestia felt Marcus tense beside her as the pressure increased. He resists naturally. A most unusual specimen. He's not a specimen, Celestia snapped, her hair flaring defensive red. And he's under my protection. Thalos's expression remained impassive, but his hair betrayed amusement with ripples of orange. Your protection. You've grown sentimental during your exile, emissary. The Council will find this development concerning, particularly given your historical value as an asset. What does he mean, asset? Marcus asked quietly. Thalas's eyes widened. You haven't told him? How intriguing. He turned fully to Marcus. Before her exile, Emissary Celestia was the hegemony's most effective weapon. Entire civilizations restructured through her influence. Strategic enemies neutralized. Rebellions quelled before they began. Her speciality was infiltration and subjugation without detection, the perfect psychological weapon. Marcus looked at Celestia, his expression unreadable. She couldn't meet his eyes. That was a different life, she said. A life the Council believes still has considerable value, Delos countered. Which is why I've come with an offer rather than execution orders. Return with me, resume your duties, and your exile will be commuted. And if I refuse? Thalas's hair darkened to threatening crimson. Then I am authorized to retrieve you by any means necessary. Including the neutralization of any complications. His gaze slid meaningfully to Marcus. The laboratory felt suddenly cold. Celestia calculated her options. She could fight, her abilities were formidable, but Delos was an archon, one of the most powerful of her kind. She could run, but they would find her eventually. Or she could return, abandon Earth, abandon Marcus. You have until tomorrow's sunrise to decide, Delos announced. I will return for your answer. With a final appraising look at Marcus, he shimmered and vanished. Silence fell heavy between them. Is it true? Marcus finally asked. What he said about you? Celestia closed her eyes, her hair dimming to sorrowful blue. Yes. I told you I was exiled for failing a mission. I didn't tell you about the ones I completed. How many? 17 major civilizations. Hundreds of influential individuals. Thousands of operations. She forced herself to look at him. I was created for it, Marcus. Bred and trained from inception to be the perfect infiltrator. He paced the destroyed lab, processing. And now they want you back. They never intended to let me go permanently. Exile was merely a punishment, a temporary loss of status. She approached him cautiously. Marcus, I need to leave Earth. Delos won't hesitate to kill you to reclaim me. And if you go with him? What happens to you? The question caught her off guard. Even facing this crisis, he was concerned for her. I'll be reconditioned. My emotional developments will be purged. I'll return to service. She couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. They'd erase everything you've become, Marcus said, understanding dawning in his eyes. Everything we've shared. It's the only way to keep you safe. Marcus shook his head firmly. No. We find another way. My research, before we destroyed it, I was close to understanding the unique resonance between us. If we could amplify it somehow, create a field. A shield against psychic influence, Celestia realized, hope flickering briefly. But we'd need equipment, time. Then we'll have to improvise. Marcus was already gathering salvageable components from the wreckage. The university has backup servers. Not everything is lost. As they hurriedly collected what they could, an alert chimed from Celestia's communication device. She checked it and froze. What is it? Marcus asked. 2 more ships have entered Earth's atmosphere, she said grimly. Delos didn't come alone. He brought hunters. How long do we have? Celestia calculated rapidly. Hours, not days. They'll establish a perimeter, begin tracking my energy signature. Marcus grabbed her hand. Then we need to move. Now. As they fled the lab, Celestia felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries, genuine fear. Not for herself, but for Marcus. For what they had discovered together. For the person she was becoming. For the first time in her existence, she had something to lose that mattered more than her own survival. And that realization made her both vulnerable and dangerous in ways the Sovereign Council could never anticipate. Dawn approached with merciless steadiness. Celestia and Marcus had taken refuge in an abandoned observatory at the edge of the city, a fitting last stand among the stars that had witnessed her journey. They had worked through the night, cobbling together equipment salvaged from his lab with components from the observatory's old systems. "It's not elegant," Marcus said, connecting the final wires to an improvised amplifier, "but it might work." Celestia monitored the psychic frequencies, feeling the hunters drawing closer. Her hair rippled with anxious amber patterns as she tested the shield generator. "The resonance is unstable. If we amplify it at this frequency, it might disrupt their abilities temporarily, but not permanently," Marcus finished, wiping sweat from his brow. "And not against an Archon like the Los." Their eyes met in shared understanding. This wasn't a solution, it was merely a delaying tactic. "You should go," Celestia said softly. "I can create a diversion, give you time to get somewhere safe." Marcus's laugh held no humor. "Where exactly would that be? If they're as powerful as you say, nowhere on Earth is beyond their reach." "Then I'll surrender myself," she insisted, her hair flaring determined white. "The Los wants me, not you." "And what happens to you if you do?" Marcus challenged. "You said it yourself, they'll erase everything you've become. Everything that makes you you." Celestia turned away, unable to face the truth in his words. Outside, the first light of dawn kissed the horizon, painting the sky in soft pinks and golds. "Time's up," came a melodic voice from behind them. They spun to find the Los standing in the observatory doorway, his elaborate robes flowing around him despite the absence of wind. Behind him stood two more Luminescents, their expressions cold and calculating, their hair synchronized in predatory patterns of deep purple. "Your answer, emissary?" the Los prompted. Celestia stepped forward, positioning herself between the Archon and Marcus. "I decline your offer." The Los sighed, his hair swirling with disappointed blue. "As anticipated. The Council suspected your contamination might be irreversible." He gestured to the hunters behind him. "Secure the human. We'll need to study him to determine how he's affecting her." As the hunters advanced, Celestia unleashed her full psychic ability, not the subtle manipulations she typically employed, but raw power. The air between them shimmered with psychic energy, halting the hunters momentarily. "You cannot win this confrontation," the Los stated calmly, countering her attack with seemingly effortless shields of his own. "Even at your peak, you were never a match for an Archon. And you are far from your peak now, Celestia. You've grown, diminished." Marcus lunged for the amplifier, activating their makeshift shield. A wave of energy pulsed outward, disrupting the hunters' concentration. They staggered back, their hair flashing confused patterns. The Los merely frowned, momentarily inconvenienced. "Clever. You've been studying our energy signatures." With a gesture, he shattered their device, sending components flying across the observatory floor. But ultimately futile. With another wave of his hand, he immobilized Marcus with a psychic hold. "Now, shall we discuss terms? Or shall I simply take what the Council requires?" Celestia felt rage build within her, not the cold, calculated anger she had wielded as a weapon throughout her existence, but something primal and protective. Her hair blazed crimson as she gathered her strength for another attack. But before she could strike, the Los raised his hand. "Before you waste your energy, there's something you should know." His voice carried tones of revelation. "Something the Council never told you about your origins." Despite herself, Celestia hesitated. "You were never merely an emissary," the Los continued. "You were an experiment. The first of your kind designed to infiltrate resistance movements throughout the galaxy. But your design had a flaw, a capacity for emotional evolution that the Council couldn't eliminate. You're lying, Celestia hissed, though uncertainty crept into her voice. Am I? Thalos's hair pattern shifted to truth-telling blue, a sacred configuration that no luminess could falsify. Why do you think you were sent to exile rather than terminated after your failure? The Council wants to study how your emotional development affects your abilities. This human, he gestured to Marcus, has simply accelerated a process we were already monitoring. Marcus, still struggling against the psychic restraint, managed to speak. If that's true, then she's no longer your weapon. She's something new, something you can't control. Thalos's attention shifted to him, curious. You misunderstand, human. Her evolution doesn't diminish her value to the hegemony, it increases it. Imagine infiltrators who can form genuine emotional bonds with their targets. The perfect deep cover agents. Horror dawned on Celestia as she understood the implication. You want to replicate what's happened to me. Precisely. The Los smiled, his hair rippling with satisfied gold. Return with us, and the human remains unharmed. We merely wish to study your connection, understand how it formed. Celestia looked at Marcus, seeing in his eyes the same realization. If she agreed, their bond, something real and precious, would become a template for manipulation on a galactic scale. In that moment, something crystallized within her. Throughout her existence, she had been a vessel for the Council's will, a perfectly crafted tool. Even her exile had been part of their design. But what had grown between her and Marcus, that was hers alone. Something not engineered or anticipated. You're right about one thing, the Los, she said, her voice steadying. I have evolved. But not in the way the Council hoped. She closed her eyes, reaching deep within herself to the source of her abilities, the psychic wellspring that had made her such an effective weapon. But instead of directing it outward as a weapon, she turned it inward, following the resonance pattern that connected her to Marcus. Their research hadn't been about creating shields against psychic influence, it had been about understanding the unique harmony between them. And in that understanding lay a different kind of power. Celestia opened her eyes, which now glowed with intensity. Marcus, do you trust me? Despite everything, he nodded without hesitation. She reached for him, breaking through Thalos's restraint with surprising ease. The moment their hands connected, energy surged between them, not the one-way flow of influence she had always wielded, but a circuit, amplifying and returning. The Los stepped back, alarm rippling through his hair. What are you doing? Something you never considered, Celestia answered, her voice overlapping with harmonics as the energy built around them. You designed me to take. To dominate. To control. But I've learned something else entirely. The observatory filled with light emanating from their joined hands. The hunters fell back, shielding their eyes. Impossible, the Los whispered, witnessing something beyond his comprehension. Not impossible, Celestia corrected. Just unprecedented. The energy expanded outward in a perfect sphere, engulfing the observatory. Where it touched the hunters, they froze, their psychic abilities temporarily neutralized. But when it reached the Los, something different happened, his carefully constructed mental shields began to dissolve. For the first time, Celestia saw into the mind of an Archon. Saw the fear that drove the Council's need for control. Saw the truth of her own creation. And most importantly, saw how to end this. The Council didn't send you to retrieve me, she said, understanding dawning. They sent you to eliminate me. I've become too unpredictable. The Los didn't deny it. The experiment reached its conclusion. Your emotional contamination cannot be contained. No, she agreed, it can't. Because it's not contamination, it's evolution. And now you're experiencing it too. The Archon's hair betrayed his panic with chaotic patterns. What have you done to me? Shared something with you. Something the Council fears more than any weapon. The energy continued to flow through her and Marcus, creating a feedback loop that grew stronger with each cycle. The capacity to connect rather than control. The Los stumbled back, overwhelmed by unfamiliar emotions flooding through him. This will not stand. The Council will send others. Perhaps, Celestia acknowledged. But they'll find something waiting for them that they don't expect. With a final surge of energy, she released a pulse that radiated beyond the observatory, beyond the city, expanding to encompass the region. Every luminescent technology within its radius short-circuited, including the ships that had brought the hunters. When the light faded, the Los and his hunters remained, but transformed. Their hair patterns displayed confused, chaotic emotions they had never experienced before. What you're feeling, Celestia told them gently, is empathy. The understanding that others are as real as you are. It's uncomfortable at first, but it gets easier. The Los looked at her with new eyes. The Council was right to fear you. Not me, she corrected, squeezing Marcus's hand. Us. What we represent. The possibility that control isn't the pinnacle of power, connection is. As dawn fully broke over the horizon, casting golden light through the observatory's dome, Celestia faced the choice she had been moving toward since her arrival on Earth. She could return to the stars, to the vast reaches of the galaxies she had known for centuries. Or she could stay, embracing the limitations and possibilities of a single world, and the unlimited potential of a genuine bond. What will you do now? Marcus asked, looking at the disoriented luminescence before them. Celestia's hair shimmered with colors that had no name in any human language, the visual representation of emotions she was still learning to identify. First, I'm going to help them, she said, gesturing to the Los and the hunters. They're experiencing something entirely new, just as I did. Then. She turned to face Marcus fully, her kaleidoscope eyes reflecting his image. Then I'd like to stay. If you'll have me. For how long? He asked, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Her hair rippled with the soft pink of affection, the deep blue of commitment, and the bright gold of hope. For as long as it takes to discover everything I don't yet know about being real. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Celestia, once the most feared weapon of a galactic empire, embraced the most powerful force she had ever encountered, the choice to love rather than control, to connect rather than manipulate, to evolve rather than remain static. It wasn't the destiny she was created for, but it was the one she had chosen. And in that choice lay a freedom more vast than all the stars she had ever known.